Let's move to team 2, the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics had one of the more active off seasons that you will see. I didn't think I recognized that at the time, but their offseason was actually quite important. Let's start with the trades because I think that the trade section is actually the one that saw the most roster movement, at least. They moved Marcus Smart, Danilo Gallinari, Mike Muscala, and the 35th overall pick in 2023 for Kristaps Porzingis, the number 25 pick, and the Warriors 2024 first round pick in a 3-team deal with Washington and Memphis. They get essentially 2 first round picks and Kristaps for Marcus Smart, which is really good asset management, in my opinion, by Boston. They also traded Grant Williams, who was a restricted free agent, to the Dallas Mavericks for essentially 3 second-round picks. That created a $6.2 million trade exception. And then the most important part of their offseason was actually the contracts they handed out. They signed Jalen Brown to this enormous 5-year, $288 million max extension. Then they extended Kristaps Porzingis to a 2-year, $60 million extension after acquiring him in that deal. They signed O'Shea Brissett and Delano Banton. They still have Jayson Tatum, who I don't think can actually sign an extension because his max number is set to just continue to rise. Derek White, Malcolm Brogdon, and Peyton Pritchard as potential extension candidates. If I was them, I would be trying to sign Derek White to an extension. I think that just makes a lot of sense for them. Also on draft night, they were the most active team in terms of trades. Deep breath. They traded the number 25 overall pick for number 31 and 2 future seconds. They traded number 31 for number 34 and 39. They traded number 34 for number 38 and a future second. They then traded number 39 for a future second. All told, they traded number 25 and acquired 5 second-round picks, 4 of those in future drafts, and they used one of those picks, the one at number 38 overall, to take Jordan Walsh, the 6'7" wing with an enormous wingspan and who performed quite well at Summer League from Arkansas. Okay, that's a lot. Ooh. Do you think that this offseason will be remembered as the one that they locked into Jalen Brown's max extension or the one where they moved Marcus Smart? Because both of those are seismic moves in different ways.
I will remember it as the one where they dealt Marcus Smart, more so because I kind of expected the Jaylen Brown extension. Marcus Smart has become kind of the cultural leader in Boston in so many different ways over the last decade that trade kind of came out of nowhere for me. When you look at what they got for making that deal, I think you do it 10 times out of 10. But that one did catch me by surprise a little bit, and I think that it's a very different type of move by Brad Stevens in the Celtics front office to go in on being a little bit bigger, that the Porzingis, Rob Williams, Horford triad at the 4 and the 5 really locks them into not just having great depth in the front court by playing those 3 in versatile kind of lineups together, but playing Tatum at the 3 and Brown at the 2, which makes the Celtics freaking massive. And they're going to be a tough team to match up with.
They're really big. They are the thing that I felt like they have. I don't want to say they lacked, but I felt like they needed another option as a rim protection candidate next to Rob Williams. When Rob is out there, Rob is obviously an enormous rim protector. I feel like that is kind of the piece of Al Horford's game that has been just a little bit less active over the course of the last year. And getting Kristaps, I think it went way under the radar how good Kristaps was last season. This was the best season of his career. Kristaps Porzingis was everything that people like kind of envisioned him being when he came out of like Spain and ultimately Latvia, which is where he's originally from, but he played in Sevilla for Spain when he was pre-draft. Like averaged 23 points, 8.4 rebounds. He shot 39% on 5.5 3-point attempts per game. I would bet for Boston that number's going up near 7 or 8 this year. He is going to be a pick and pop dude this year. Shot 49% from the field, almost 50% from the field, 85% from the line. Finally has like improved a little bit as like a passer and decision maker, feels like to me. He's not like a total sieve there. Used to be that you could like really pressure him, it felt like, to cause issues. The other piece of this is, and I don't want to like overemphasize this maybe a little bit, but at the end of games, when you watch Boston, the Celtics' biggest issue last year was end of game execution.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like they didn't have a hierarchy in terms of like who was going to be the guy. And often it resulted in Marcus deciding to take over and kind of be the guy, right? We can be honest about that. And that's not what you want when you have Jayson Tatum and Jalen Brown on this roster. I do wonder if on some level, it's a great deal because you got Kristaps Porzingis, who's a great fit for the Celtics, who is a great fit for this offense because they love spacing from the 5, all of that. And then you get the 2 first-round picks as well, what they've turned into 1 first-round pick and like 5 second-round picks. I do wonder if part of this deal for Boston on some level was getting Marcus Smart out of there offensively and out of the engine room, despite the fact that he is such a leader. Because he's such a leader, he felt like he needed to take over in those moments a little bit. I wonder if part of this is just handing over the team to Jaylen and Jayson a little bit more, saying that this is your team now. We're going to go as far as your leadership takes us in addition to your skills.
Well, it's funny. I was having a conversation with a couple of buddies of mine who follow the Celtics pretty closely and are, shrewd basketball minds. And the question they asked me was, what does Marcus Smart do that Derek White doesn't, other than take a couple bad shots a game? And
I think Derek is better than Marcus at this point, but I know that that's an unpopular opinion.
Sure. And I think that's the point that they're trying to make, right? Like it's so close and it's close enough, and the roles that they fill for the Celtics team are going to be similar, that if you can turn Smart, who might even be a little bit redundant when you have both him and White, into front court floor spacing and all-star level production from Porzingis, and all of these future assets that Brad Stevens is someday going to trade away because he doesn't want to make a first-round pick ever, it seems like it's a good deal for the Celtics. It really, really is. And look, that 2024 first from Golden State, I think is going to probably be a valuable trade chip for them around the deadline this year, and allow them to figure out what their depth issues might be and find a way to include that to address them.
Yeah. And look, the Celtics do have their own first round pick as well. Mm-hmm. So, they have 2 picks that basically you would anticipate being in the 18 to 30 range, let's call it. I think there probably would be value in them, especially with Jaylen and Jayson using both of those picks, frankly, given how expensive Jaylen and Jayson are about to get together. If you have any chance of retaining both of them long-term, you probably do need to get some really high level, rookie scale talent in the door. I also think they probably will look at potential trade chips with each of those picks if both come to fruition. Let's talk very briefly about Jaylen Brown, though. This isn't the way this has been like framed by some people is very strange to me. This is a deal Boston like unequivocally had to do.
Had to.
Look, you can be worried about Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum making 70% of your cap long-term together if you really want to be, I guess. But what this does is it gives you a 2-year window before Jayson Tatum's next contract kicks in to where they can actually try and like really go at this. And in the NBA, a 2-year window is all you can really ask for at this point. With the way the player movement is now, with the way that, guys will ask out, with the way that the league continues to shift and fundamentally alter every year as new talent enters and talent exits and everything. A 2-year window where you have all your guys locked in basically and you have a chance to win a title with your core, that's the best you can do. And the Celtics have set themselves up through this Jaylen Brown contract where he is now going to make more money guaranteed than any player in NBA history, at least for now, until, next offseason. They have set themselves up with that 2-year window, and that's what they had to do. They have opened up the window as wide as humanly possible. Maybe they win one, maybe they don't. But as a front office, that's the only thing you can do is set yourself up with the widest, best possible window you can to win an NBA title.
Totally agree. And I know that there's frustration about certain areas of Jalen's game that haven't necessarily improved, mainly kind of his handle and the tightness and crispness of that. Look, this is a dude who just continues to get better at something year after year and is an incredibly valuable two-way player, a guy who off court is as impeccable of an NBA player as you can find in terms of not worrying about him in the locker room and making sure that he's going to have great contributions to the community. It's a home run to retain Jaylen Brown, keep Jayson Tatum happy, keep this window open. The number is going to be the number. It's what the going rate is for these guys based on where the cap is headed and how things have just unfolded with the league making such a boom over the last decade. It's a jarring number to see. He's worth every penny.
Yeah. Look, they take up about 50% of the cap next season. They take up about 60% of the cap in 2024-25. It's about right for your two best players. The next offseason is the one where it gets really crazy for them. You just kind of got to roll with it and you got to rock with it and see what happens. Hopefully Boston is able to win a title for their sake. If not, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. I thought their draft moves were intriguing. They added something like 8 second-round picks and a first this offseason. Again, a team that is going to need cheap players around Jaylen and Jayson if they want to keep this core together long-term. I understand why they went about it this way. Losing Grant Williams probably does not help, but he probably was also a bit superfluous on this roster at this point. You could use him situationally, but for the price tag of, $13 to $14 million. Yeah. I think all of this lines up, and I think that this was a good offseason for Boston at the end of the day. They did all of the moves that it wasn't the moves they had to make, but I like all of the moves they did make.
Yeah, and year after year, I find myself saying pretty much that exact same thing. Like Brad Stevens has proven to be very shrewd in how he manages making this roster better from June to September.